All right. Good morning. Welcome to the second episode of President's Tech Brief. I'm David Lin. This week, Joe Wang and I are holding down the fort here in SCSP headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, while Martin and Ylli are reporting from the Munich Security Conference in Germany. We'll be hearing from them in just a moment.
Yeah, great. Thanks to be here. Sorry. Thanks, David, and great to be here. You know, it's awesome to be on a second show. We're holding out the fort while Ylli and Martin are out in Munich. So as everybody knows, we've called this the President's Tech Brief after the President's Daily Brief. And David, you and I know, and many of us here at SCSP have worked in the U.S. government. You know, the PDB is the gold standard when it comes to intelligence, analysis, operational updates that the president gets every single day. And so, you guys know what we do here at SCSP around the geopolitical environment around the world, national security issues and technology. And so we wanted to make sure that this show gets you guys every single week the best updates on all the things that really matter and all the things that are happening around the world in the space that we're covering. So yeah, David, do you want to explain some of the tickers that we have on screen?
Yeah, just to help orient our viewers on the screen, the first ticker you see below is our tech scorecard, which is something you'll be hearing more about over the course of the coming months and weeks and months. This is our assessment on where the U.S. and China stand relative to one another across a waterfront of strategic technologies. So as these assessments shift, we'll be talking about why here on the show. Next, you see a ticker running on the screen below this tech scorecard, which is an AI intelligence system that we're developing here in-house. It monitors breaking developments across our key portfolios in real time. Multi-agent AI filters are separating the strategic signal from the noise. So what you see is what's actually moving the needle on the tech competition. And then lastly, of course, we want to engage with you. We want to hear from you. We want to hear feedback, comments, questions from the audience, our viewers. So hit us up on Signal at SCSP.250. Again, our handle on Signal is SCSP.250.
Yeah, I mean, again, we want to make this a conversation. We want to hear from you guys. So by all means, leave comments wherever you can. Signal, YouTube, text us, come to the office. Actually, maybe not come to the office, but anyways, for today's agenda, so we're going to turn over to Ylli and Martin soon at the Munich Security Conference, which is the biggest, one of the biggest global security conferences around the world, and we have so many world leaders there gathered to talk through all the issues, and so it's going to be great to get a live on-the-ground report from Ylli and Martin. And then next, we'll talk through some of the latest developments on China and Taiwan, the Genesis mission, with our colleague Nyah, and then also something big is happening. So we're going to save that for for the end, where we'll review something big that's happening. So yeah, David.
All right, so let's dive into our first segment. We are joined by Ylli and Martin in Germany at the Munich Security Conference. So Ylli, Martin, can you hear us? Tell us what you guys have been up to.
Hey, David. Hey, Joe. Good to be with you. As you can see, we're on the top floor of the hotel where the German, as you mentioned, the Munich Security Conference is happening right now, taking place. Today was the first day. I'm here with Martin, so we've had an incredible day so far. Tomorrow, you'll hear from a lot of U.S. officials. I mean, even today, I think the U.S. UN Ambassador Mike Waltz spoke earlier. Tomorrow, obviously, first thing in the morning, the audience here will hear from the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Of note, I would argue, Joe, you and I have been here many, many times. You can tell that technology, energy, AI really has entered a much more center stage. I remember, Joe, when you and I started coming here, the AI and technology were really happening on the side events, probably on the marginal rooms, but you can tell like how important these topics are. The future of energy, the future of AI really are dominating a lot of conversation this year. I'll turn over to Martin shortly to talk about what we did, but generally SCSP has been a great partner to MSC. We had an event yesterday, and I'll turn over to Martin to give a little bit of background about why we did that event yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did a scenario where the axis of disruptors, so that's Beijing, Moscow, Pyongyang, and Tehran, banded together to flood the zone, essentially. First in AI in move 1, and then in move 2 in biotech and pharmaceuticals. I thought it was just a phenomenal event, right? I mean, we had heavyweights from foreign policy, tech policy, industry, and military officers. The first thing they always say about events like that is don't fight the scenario. I found it striking that several people remarked this scenario is hyper realistic.
It's happening right now.
Exactly. And yeah, throughout, it was a very robust discussion. I thought there were some very profound insights, really practical, pragmatic recommendations on how to tackle these issues, but also a few contrarian views, which is always healthy to have, right? To
Absolutely.
stimulate debate.
Absolutely. And as you guys know, this is not our first red team exercise. Almost every year for the last couple of years, in partnership with MSC, we have organized this red teaming exercise. The first 2 years, we organized it around a fictional Tehran Security Conference. What would happen and what kind of conversation would happen if the security conference would take place in Tehran? So we put the hats of, experts from Russia, North Korea, Iran, and China, and we would mirror what they would talk about the rest of the world and how they would see the geopolitical order. This year, we decided to be in Beijing, and as Martin mentioned, really work through two moves. The first one, what happens when China really deploys across the world open weight models, and on top of that, really builds the robotic platforms. And then move two was like, what would happen if the next step would be that China really takes control of the entire biopharma supply chain? But I thought, as Martin mentioned, the conversation was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And so keep an eye out on our newsletter. We'll have a full readout of the details, as well as our partners at Foreign Policy Magazine will be producing some content as well. So keep an eye out for all of that.
Any questions, Joe, since you've been here, and David?
Like great view. Obviously, it's a couple hours ahead. Like, how are the vibes, right? How are the vibes in terms of how the Europeans are seeing U.S. engagement? Obviously, last year with the new administration, Vice President Vance, really laid it in hard on the Germans specifically about how they're treating domestic politics. I mean, how are the vibes this year in terms of how Europeans and others see the U.S. positions?
You're right, Joe. I mean, last year after the vice president's speech, as you can imagine, the vibe changed, but obviously it was the first speech by the new administration high official. Tomorrow we have, as I said, Secretary of State is going to address the crowd. So I think the German Chancellor just spoke, and I think he had a really measured tone in terms of transatlantic relationships. So I think this rhetoric will continue over the weekend. It feels much more leveled off from last year, Joe. But again, it's only Friday, much more to go ahead of us.
Yeah, I'd say so far the vibe is cautiously optimistic. I think after a year of reflection, our European friends understand these transatlantic bonds are very, very strong. Yes, there's friction right now, but I think a good example is Undersecretary Kolbe's speech yesterday at NATO headquarters, right? It's tough love, but it's also very realistic. I think the Europeans are ready to step up to the plate, particularly in matters of defense. So, so far, so good.
Yeah.
Maybe just one more question, going back to the TTX. Were there any plot twists, things that happened or things that people said that you didn't see coming or that surprised you?
I think the one thing was that contrarian view that I mentioned. One of the participants actually argued that some of these developments, particularly in pharmaceuticals, would actually be a good thing for society.
For the global world.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I disagree with that stance, but it's good to have that types of viewpoints represented because it stimulated more discussion and it made it for a richer event.
Yeah, I agree, Martin. Over to you guys.
Like you said, I mean, we've been a partner with MSC for a long time. Do you want to give folks an update on or a preview of some of the things that you guys will be doing over the next couple of days?
Yeah, Joe. So we have a lot of things in the plan. Tonight, I'm moderating a dinner with high-level Intel officials, and then tomorrow I'm recording a podcast with the head of the German military. So I'm interviewing the head of the German defense staff. And then we're hosting our traditional dinner, Joe, that you remember we launched with MSC, in which we do it's called Tectonic Shifts, where we bring all our friends and partners just to do a recap of the MSC and everything that happened around the technology events. This year, Joe, as you know, MSC has launched a big tech hub. So on the side, they're going to do a lot of conversations about EU AI sovereignty, the energy, AI, and all the current topics evolving, around technology.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. In addition to that, I'm going to be part of a small group lunch with Minister Jaishankar of India. So that should be a very interesting discussion. Lots to talk about in terms of the U.S.-India trade deal that was just concluded. And I think the continuation of ISET will be a big topic as well.
Well, thanks, Ylli, Martin. Can't wait to have you guys back in the office. Don't worry, the snow is still here, so you'll be back in the frigid DC area soon enough. So good luck
Thank
with
you,
the
guys.
rest of MSC. Safe travels back, and see you next week.
Yep.
Thank you.
See-
That's great.
Well,
Yeah.
it looks like the weather's much better over there too. Pivoting to our next topic is the Chinese maneuvers, figurative ones, political ones, and actual military ones surrounding Taiwan. Last week, during our first episode of President's Tech Brief, we talked about the phone call between President Trump and Xi, and about how the two heads of state had contrasting approaches to what the readout was from the call, but they were both clearly trying to appeal to their domestic audiences. For Xi, the clear issue at the center of the call was Taiwan. And then shortly after our episode aired, there was a Financial Times article that came out talking about how the U.S. arms sales to Taiwan, one of the biggest in its history, was threatening to throw off the whole bilateral visit. So, and then since then, also Financial Times has been also rolling out some new reporting about how there's been some very aggressive Chinese air maneuvers surrounding the Taiwan, some close calls between the PLA Air Force and the Taiwanese Air Force. So Joe, I mean, what do you kind of make of all of this?
Yeah, I think we have a graphic that we can cue to come on screen as well. I mean, so I think first and foremost, just on President Trump's upcoming trip to Beijing, I think another piece of news out of Munich was that the German Chancellor also announced that he's going to be heading out to China pretty soon as well. And so I think we're seeing all of the world leaders making their trips out there to see, to hear from Beijing, hear from Xi himself, what's going on, how he sees the world. And I think we see a bit of kind of the hedging and the balancing everywhere as the U.S. with the new administration, with President Trump's different policies on tariffs and their approach to alliances. People are trying to figure out like how the new world order is going to work, right? So for President Trump, I think one of the key things that like you're saying with the Financial Times articles or the news about the prospects of an arms deal going forward, this is one of those things that everyone freaks out about on all sides, right? For the Chinese, they don't want the news of the arms deal, coming out before a big meeting between Xi and Trump. For the president, he doesn't want to have any sort of negative news that might disrupt how he's going to be received in Beijing. And for the Taiwanese, obviously, everything is always kind of frenetic and hysterical when it's in the headlines. But I think it's interesting to just keep in mind, for Taiwan, we actually have about $20 billion of past sales that are still backlogged in terms of production. That hasn't quite where the material hasn't quite been delivered to Taiwan, right? So, that partnership between the U.S. and Taiwan is not going away.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've kitted out the Taiwanese military. They had the best gear in the world because they buy American. So all the stuff that's on the table, the prospects of a new arms deal, even if the news of that or the finalization of the package isn't done before April, it's going to be done at some point in the near future, right? So I think one of the key things to keep in mind is always like don't let the headlines drive the substance, right? And especially for us here in DC and our friends in Taipei, keep calm, carry forward, stay the course. These things always happen in terms of headline news, kind of like making little turbulences in how things are perceived. But at the same time, again, that partnership between U.S. and Taiwan's not going away. Personally, I do think that just given the news cycle, there probably is going to be a delay in finalizing this recent arms deal. But again, at the same time, the backlog of equipment that we have going to Taiwan is still there, and I think obviously on our side, production is ongoing, and all that stuff will be delivered. But it's really about the future. For what we need, for what Taiwan needs, that arms package will come. Whether it is finalized before President Trump goes to China or not, I don't think it really matters.
I remember last year, not the past time when we went to Taiwan, but last year when we went to Taiwan, we met with some senior Taiwanese government officials. And one of the things that kind of stuck out in my mind was, coming from the Taiwanese, they kept on saying, the U.S. is pushing them to increase defense spending. And the choke point, like you kind of talked about, was not how much we'll sell, but how much we can build to sell to Taiwan. They're ready to buy as much as we're willing to sell, but the choke point does appear to be our ability to manufacture the defense, the equipment at scale at a pace that's still strategically valuable for Taiwan.
Yeah, no, I think part of the problem that's a more systemic problem that we need to deal with as a country, right? Because as we see what's going on in Ukraine, as we see what's going on all around the world, the renewed conflicts in the Middle East, some of the operations that we're conducting in the Western Hemisphere, with the operations against Venezuela, prospects for cross-strait tensions with China and Taiwan as well. Like, we need to have that industrial capacity to make sure that we can produce the equipment that we need for our national security at scale. And so I think, we'll hopefully some of those backlogs will, the timing and the delay will get shorter over time. But, that's just been a persistent problem that we've had for some time.
Along the same lines, do you want to spend maybe 10 seconds talking about zero-day attack?
Yeah. So I think the other bit of news from us here at SCSP this week is that we actually had the producers of Zero-Day Attack, which is a Taiwan TV show that talks through all of the different scenarios when it comes to the gray zone warfare, the hybrid warfare that China does against Taiwan. The producers, the show is a 10-episode series that goes through a lot of different scenarios of some of the challenges that Taiwanese people face in their daily life, and how they're in this environment where there's the prospect for China invading Taiwan. But a lot of the messaging out of the show really is, this conflict started a long time ago, right? And the war actually started a long time ago. It's not the same type of kinetic war. Or it's not a kinetic war that we're used to. It's not the Clausewitzian definition of war, right? But in terms of what China has been trying to do against Taiwan, hybrid warfare, disinformation attacks, cyber attacks, political influence, all of that has been going on for a long, long time, right? And so as the prospect of invasion is a lot higher now as we approach 2027, the Davidson window, the idea of being able to have these discussions in Taiwan amongst the Taiwanese people is actually pretty important to make sure that people are getting ready and can think about like what they need to do to be resilient in the face of a lot of these attacks. And so we had the producers come here to DC last week. We're going to have a podcast that's going to be released on Monday, on Straightforward that Channing Lee hosts. And so you guys will have a chance to hear directly from the producers on the work they did on the show. We had a screening here in the office, which is amazing, showing both the series premiere and the finale. And then we also had a showing earlier this week in Congress as well. Which was a great turnout with Chairman of the China Select Committee, Representative Molinar, Representative Gomez as well, who was just in Taiwan. And also Representative Ylli from Tech will come and just speak about both on the U.S. side, how and why Taiwan is important for the U.S., and also from Representative Ylli just kind of like talking through the U.S.-Taiwan partnership as well, and how to make sure that we can be secure together. So it's a great event. The challenge and the reason why we had to do this was because the show is not available anywhere outside of Taiwan or Japan. And so it was actually like really an exclusive showing here in DC to make sure that people had a chance to understand and see from the Taiwanese perspective some of the issues that they're facing when it comes to the gray zone threat from China. So hopefully we'll have a chance to do something like that again soon. So yeah.
Well, with the Chinese Lunar New Year coming up, there's going to be inevitably, I think, a lull in China news for the next week or so. But as we approach the Trump visit to China in April, slated for April, we can all expect them to be a lot more posturing in the days and weeks coming up. So we'll be revisiting this topic for sure in future episodes. Okay, so let's move on. I want to welcome Nyah Stewart and Dr. Ryan Carpenter to the desk here, who will be talking about some of the more U.S.-centric tech topics. First of which is the Genesis mission, which is something, a very ambitious initiative that the Department of Energy here in the U.S. is launching. So Nyah, do you want to maybe tell us what Genesis Mission is and some of the big announcements that came out this week?
Yeah, of course. Well, hello, everyone. Happy to be here. I'm also happy and excited to talk about a topic that I research a lot here at SCSP, which is AI for science. And the Genesis Mission does just that. It's a national program that is designed to build a AI for science platform. So it's built and its purpose is to really accelerate AI's application to scientific discovery. And this is something that SCSP has pushed for a long time, since NSAI, and it's really exciting that it's starting to kind of start its first steps of execution. Joe, did you have something to add?
No, I think one of the things we've talked about at SCSP is we really laid the foundations for the Genesis mission, right?
Yeah.
And Nyah, you were great on building out a lot of the research into how we should do this. And so, just like the entire past couple of years that you've been working on the issue, I think is really incredible in laying the foundations for what the U.S. and what, it's DOE that's leading the mission on Genesis, right? To make sure that, when we think about how AI and science are going to come together, that we make sure that we, the U.S., are still going to be at that forefront of innovation and scientific research.
Yeah, I think something that we like to say is that the nation that builds this type of capability will not be caught, right? Because it will have the ability to innovate faster and quicker and at unparalleled speeds that we've never seen before, because AI is an accelerant of scientific discovery. And I'm really excited to see it take down some of the world's biggest problems, which I think is one of the new announcements of the 26 challenges that the Genesis mission is hoping to tackle, which is really promising.
Yeah, the two announcements. One was Genesis Mission announcing like a public-private partnership consortium, which had a couple dozen companies listed to be partners with the national labs and moving, AI for science forward. And then, like this 26 S&T challenges, which is really cool. I mean, we have things like accelerating delivery of fusion energy to unifying physics from quarks to the cosmos, predicting U.S. water. That was of the 26, I could have picked another one. But these are really ambitious, bold goals. And what I liked about the document too was that it wasn't purely about like AI. We need to make AI better, faster, stronger. But it was like, what can AI do for you, and how can AI actually lead to real world impacts and real world deliverables? Yeah,
I think my favorite challenge kind of on this point of real world applications is the biotechnology one. I think the application of AI to drug discovery and making novel therapeutics is something that everyone can kind of relate to and get excited about, especially with the possibility of it creating cures that we've never seen before for some of the diseases that currently don't have a cure, types of cancer, Alzheimer's. And I think that's really exciting, and I think brings a lot of hope about AI's applications.
And these are things that, like, hopefully amid, the political climate in DC, but these are things that hopefully everyone can get behind.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So,
for sure.
Who doesn't want? And we've talked about it in the past about how AI adoption is actually one of the more pressing challenges we need to tackle as a nation, right? Making sure that people see AI as that tool that people can use and that's actually good for them, rather than, and not to say that AI is perfect, but obviously there's been so much focus on AI safety in a way that, adoption and making sure that we are pushing forward on the innovation. And again, as you've worked on how does this make people's lives better? Right. And that's the conversation we need to have.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm excited that Genesis Mission can be kind of a shining example of the possibility and the good side of AI and everything that can be done with it as a tool, for sure.
And I think we also have we want to cue the next graphic as well. We have another podcast coming out next week where Ylli, in one of, I guess it is like the first episode of the second season of Memos to the President, where he talks with Undersecretary of the Undersecretary of Energy, Dario Gil, on all the work that the department is doing on Genesis as well. So that's coming out next week too.
And Undersecretary Gil is leading the Genesis mission too. So, all right.
Yeah, moving on. So next up, last but not least, something big. So this
something
is
big, not something small, something big. Wow.
A great cue for my good friend, Ryan Carpenter, Dr. Ryan Carpenter. Do you want to talk through, and a lot of this is, there's been so much news recently about how AI is going to impact the labor force, right, and the workforce. And so that's been picking up steam the past couple of days. And so Ryan, over to you.
Sure. Well, I've had the privilege of covering AI and work for 7 years since my time on the National Security Commission on AI. And so when I see an article called "Something Big is Happening," you better bring the noise and tell me why something big is happening, because there's been big things happening since before I was on the commission, and frankly, before ChatGPT. So this better be important. So Matt Schumer, tech CEO, wrote this thing called "Something Big is Happening," and he outlines what's happened since COVID and how we've reacted as a country and all the important innovations that have happened, particularly on LLMs. He does make a few good points, but it has been talked about in other fields. Basically, what fields are going to be impacted the most? And I'm sorry to our lawyers again. Legal work was one of the areas he focused on, financial work, writing and content, software engineering, all these fields that are going to be impacted by AI, improved by AI, because these models are improving. Having said that, this morning, that article has hit 80 million views, and you're going to get some reactions from people. And so there's some things in there that I would really steer away from. So, for example, he tells parents you should rethink what you tell your kids about getting good grades. As a father of 3 sons, I'm not going to tell them to not think about good grades. There's also it's a little bit of a doomerism where he talks about get your financial house in order, and I think that's a little bit dangerous to say. That's why it spooks so many people. But he does say that learning is now lifelong. That you need to really think about how you're using AI in a way that's useful for your job, and think about the future. The last thing I would add is give a historical anecdote. And whenever the 70s rolled around, ATMs came out, there was a real backlash from London banks. There's a powerful story that bankers in London would pour honey on ATM machines so that people wouldn't use ATMs. And between 1985 and 2002, the United States ATM machines grew from 60,000 to 380,000, and bank tellers grew from 475 to 580,000 because banks didn't have to invest that much in ATMs anymore. There was more banks, and tellers went from just changing money to actually interfacing with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of, when e-commerce first started hitting smartphones. I remember I was like, I would never trust buying anything off of my phone. And, now, just as you were talking, I ordered something off.
wait, literally, as you was talking, you
No, I was no. I mean, the fact that this post, I remember looking at it yesterday or 2 days ago, it had like 40 million views. I checked back 30 minutes, an hour later, it had 50 million views. The fact that it has taken off means that this topic has really struck a chord, right, with our current state of affairs. So, I mean, maybe going back a little bit, what do you think is the one or two things that this post gets wrong? And you touched a little bit about this already, but maybe if you could pull that thread a little bit. Yeah.
So there's two things I would say that it gets wrong. One is tasks. Just because AI can do a task does not mean a job is eliminated. I think go back to the tellers. Jeffrey Hinton in 2016 famously said radiology is going to go away because AI is going to replace it. And in 8 years later, that is not true. And in fact, there's more radiologists, and they're actually one of the best well-paying jobs in America because those jobs you have to do more with the information given to you. So there's more technical skills. So one piece of that pie of your job, because it goes away as automated, does not mean that job goes away. It means it changes. The second thing is you're not thinking about the other half of this. It's the seen and unseen. What you can see is AI doing a job. It's writing. I came to SCSP as a speechwriter. I no longer write speeches because Ylli uses Gemini to actually write speeches, and he's very good at it. So now I do workforce, so we both get what we want. But at the end of the day, there's also the unseen aspect of this. You don't see the potential. It's a lot harder to forecast out what is out there. And so right now, because of the change in technology, it's accelerating.
Yeah.
We don't see what's out there.
Yeah. And we have a couple events coming up that are of the same theme, right?
That's right. Well, and that's why actually this is so important. So that I view one of the greatest ways to achieve the American dream is through education. It's by educating yourself. And as part of that, our superpower is convening. And so we're going to do another summit on March 11th, our AI Plus Education Summit. And I'm dying to announce who's coming, but you're going to have to wait until next week. But go to our website, sign up, and register for this event because it is going to be, I think, the topic du jour for the next 3 years, at least, for education, because it matters not just for the professional class, it is for families, it is for everyone out there who is learning and how they can improve themselves.
I think, and just like from back on the AI Commission days when we, obviously we go way back in terms of working together at the NSC, but, I think one of the key themes from the AI Commission that we've, pulled forward to here at SCSP is this idea about like both AI plus, but human-machine teaming, right? We're talking about a tool that's going to make us better in everything that we're doing. And so, that doomerism I think is a little bit misplaced, but we need to inject some positivity into thinking, into helping people think through how can they use this tool in whatever field that they're working on. How do we make sure that people are in this constant learning phase of how do we level up and how do we build new skills and how do we think about the future?
On that note, let's move to our last segment, which is something that we did in our last episode that we're going to try to do in future episodes too, which is talking about AI in the office. And I think we have a video that we're going to show of just one use case of how you can use AI in the office.
I'm Ylli, a former government attorney, now leading SCSP's government affairs team. When the White House released its new AI action plan, I instantly used AI to match the plan with SCSP's recommendations. And this is what I prompted. Use the attached AI action plan and SCSP's recommendations. Create bullets showing how SCSP's work matches. Add headings. This is exactly what I needed. That's hours of work done in minutes. Over 4,000 people have already enrolled. You can learn how to do this too. The course is free and self-paced. Enroll now.
Awesome. Thanks, Ylli. All right. So, David, how did you use AI this week?
Well, so as the audience may know, we're planning to launch a couple commissions, one on robotics, one on quantum, one on that Ryan is leading on AI in the future of work. All these commissions have commissioners. We're trying to coordinate calendars, very important people, C-suite level folks. As you might imagine, coordinating calendars is a very challenging task. We got emails from all the various executive assistants, and it became a very complex, and still is a complex task of trying to triangulate a day or time when all the would work for everyone. But what I ended up doing was just copying, pasting a bunch of these emails into a chatbot and telling it to basically vector for us a date that worked for everyone. And we landed on one. Now we just gotta see if it works for everyone as opposed to most everyone. So I know, Ryan, Nyah, any use cases recently?
Well, for this article, so because there's 80 million views, there's been voluminous reaction to this. And so I actually put in a few of the responses and then it amalgamated all those responses to get the better points out of it. And it was really fascinating to see the sometimes visceral response to that article.
Yeah, I think I really love AI for a synthesizer of information and using it to kind of say, hey, this is what I'm thinking of an outline for, specific research or a newsletter, and this is kind of my ideas. Can you actually populate that and show me an example of what this looks like in a written form? And I think it's really good at doing that. Yeah. So that's one of the major ways I use it every day.
Joe?
Yeah, no, I mean, we, not just as a directive, but as a practical matter, I think we all use like AI basically in everything we do every single day now, right? So it's hard to like pinpoint like one
unique case,
work function. Yeah. But we're just talking beforehand. I'm moving soon. So I've been using AI. I mean, not just like this week, but for the past couple of weeks and months to both like figure out some of the mortgage details, to make sure that I'm not going to get screwed by a mortgage.
A lot of fine print.
Exactly, all the fine print, furniture, shopping, just doing all the stuff on also movers and making sure that movers are legit. All those human machine tasks that can help a human do more than just on their own. So yeah, it's been a fun journey. I wish AI can move me for me, but that's the next step. Yeah,
robots coming in, moving all your boxes for
one
you.
day.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap for episode 2. So thank you for joining us this week. Look forward to seeing you all next week. And I guess as we have to say at the end of all these kinds of things, like and subscribe. And thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.